vicious. Like, Natsu was straight vicious this chapter. If you've read chapter 22 of Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, you know that things have progressed in a very unexpected manner, and I think a lot of people were really predicting over the last couple chapters. And my prediction that I made a few days ago, 3 out of the 4 ended up becoming true, which is pretty nice. But I was expecting the fight to be a little longer. I didn't expect him to be this, as I said, vicious. Obviously, what happened in the last few chapters, Ignis showed up. He wants to fight Natsu one-on-one, but he needs him to progress and get stronger. And he ended up making him eat his flames to gain a temporary power boost to fight Mercphobia. Now, one thing that we know, obviously, he says straight up it's temporary. He's not just boosting him to go and fight all the dragons. He's doing it this at one point. What we do know about dragon slaying magic is when they end up pretty much slaying a dragon, bathing in their blood and their defeat, it ends up making them more powerful. That's one of the things that Zirconia talked about with Acnologia. So he should get a general power boost here. And I'm also very curious and wonder if Natsu is going to potentially consume some of the body of Mercphobia and become a dragon eater. That I don't know if it could be the case. It's just on the spot kind of a little theory. We don't know. The Dragoners could come back right now, take the body, and leave. But obviously, getting to the chapter itself, Mercphobia decides directly to get serious. You see this kind of like storm brewing overhead. It doesn't entirely look like his ocean. It could be. It definitely looks more like clouds. But the whole idea of it, if it is water, well, it can't be because you can actually see clouds off a little bit in the distance. It was just a little bit curious of why when he's forming his roar, you have these swirling dark clouds overhead. Pretty interesting. I'm wondering if it's because, the moisture in the clouds, maybe he's manipulating them just passively as he's doing this. But he's got a full-on serious roar. We saw before a about 50% roar completely made Natsu's Fire Dragon King roar nothing. But here he actually used a new Fire Dragon King technique, his Gleaming Fire, probably a upgraded version of his Brilliant Flame, and it just completely evaporated right through it. Like you could just see it not even touching it. If you look at the fireball, it's directly like got this like area of heat around it that the water is just completely being evaporated upon just within its near vicinity. It's not even making contact with the flames themselves. It's just completely gone before they even get there, which is in itself extremely impressive. And I think the reason why we see near the end of the chapter, and I'll talk about that when we get there, but Natsu's hands just completely blacked over from this intensive attack, as well from what I've again said is Etherious powers in the last chapter review, and it looks very much confirmed in this chapter, and I will talk about that again when we get near the end. But you just see Mercphobia get completely knocked back from the explosion of Natsu's attack, and Natsu, while charging, even though he seems out of control, he ends up kind of yelling and shouting to get his friends to come with him and help fight him because they have to do it together. It's not only that he wants them to do it together, as he thinks that it's right to do so, even though when he says that they were only to beat Acnologia in a group, he wasn't there on the other side, but he knows that they took part, and that's obviously very important because he's looking at it from all aspects, not just as his own achievement. It was a group achievement. Very, very impressive on all of them. And it was really nice to see Natsu, who, a lot of the times has been more of this, a little bit selfish when it comes to, trying to show off in a lot of ways. Here we see him very much like wanting to bask in this all as a group, which I thought was pretty good. But you see, like, even then, he talks about how he can't really let them leave his side. He wants them to fight with him because he has this moment, thinking back to Ignis when he says he wants to fight one-on-one. And I think not only is that because he knows that he's going to have to fight him one-on-one, so he wants to fight with his team here and now, which is pretty nice. And Yeah, he just seems like himself at this point, which I thought was really good, and why I think that was important. Just like, why would you point out Natsu just being himself? I'll get to that in a second. But everyone's joining in the attacks. They're attacking the lower portions of Mercphobia's body, while Natsu comes in with a empowered Fire Dragon King's Demolition Fist and just knocks the guy down. You can see like his horns and his scales shattering, his teeth cracking off and breaking. And it looks like he might be actually dead, because you have this spot where not only is he just smoking out of his whole body, and when the dude is pretty much mostly full of water, you'd think so because of, being a water dragon. I'm wondering, why would he be smoking out of it? It's not really what I would think is just really smoke. I think it'd be steam, and Natsu applying so much heat in that attack probably vaporized all of the water within the guy's body. So all that vapor that's coming out is just water that was completely heated into that steaming point, which is pretty intense when you think about it. But then you obviously see this part where he's still got his head up after the attack, and it just collapses at that point. And I thought the fight was gonna go another chapter or so, but it looks like this was it. I mean, last chapter we got the fight, and then getting into this one and the overwhelming power. And at first I was kind of like, damn, it was really that short. But then I realizing as I'm thinking back in this chapter, obviously parting into my whole thing about him being E&D related, with his Etherious form involved, is that it really does follow up with the hype of E&D, of Etherious Natsu Dragon. Because you want to remember, Acnologia was cautious of him. And unlike the other dragons that we've seen, at least, Acnologia was not somebody, even if he ever had the moment where someone was more powerful and above him, he wouldn't show that fear. It just didn't seem like something he would do. But he was still cautious of E&D, knowing what he could have been capable of. And we do see that here. And it's not just in, oh, well, he's powerful, and I will get to what I'm referring to near the end. But when I talked about how it was interesting that Natsu was himself while getting, charging at the fight, he started out, early in it, halfway through the last chapter, being in that kind of crazed Etherious state, like when we saw when he confronted Gray, well, when Gray confronted him, after he first went his Etherious form, with that kind of only set to destroy look on his face, and just that complete and total craving to burn whatever he set his sights on. And you see that now, because after they defeat him, when they're like, yeah, we did it, Natsu's just like, no, his body is still here. I need to make sure there's not anything there. We need to make sure there's nothing left until it's ash. And he has that same dead stare. Like, look at the page when he says that, and then go back and look at when he was talking to Gray about killing Zareth. It's that same dead stare, that built-in mindset. This isn't Natsu talking. This is the Etherious talking. Because we got to remember, the whole thing about the Etherious is, unlike the natural demons like on Galuna Island, the Etherious were man-made. And when they had something like a task, like the obvious one of killing Zareth, put upon them, it was engraved into their DNA, the very core of their being, to fulfill that. And we don't know what exactly the alteration of when Lucy messed with his book that could be here. It could be something that he's thinking about while he goes in this form becomes like a dead set kind of drive when he, enters this state. And I think that was really important, because you saw him starting out in that kind of crazed, burn it all down, destroy kind of status, and then him peering back in his normal self, and then getting back into this destroyer demon. And I think that it wasn't just him not having control, but it really had to do with the whole idea that his dragon and demon powers are fusing, because with his dragon force, there's never been a time where he wasn't, in control, but with his demon side, it kind of takes over. It gets into this autopilot mode of, whatever its goal is, it will try and perform no matter what. And I think it was just that kind of swaying back and forth between normal Natsu and what I assume, and what I think a lot of people have deduced, is his Etherious form, is a very important thing to note, because it's just that extra sign that it's not just one or the other, it's them merging, and it looks like it's making him a little bit more unstable, I'd say, than his Etherious one. But what I thought was more interesting is because when you remember back when Zareth brought up how if he dies, all of the Etherious connected to him die. Everybody that he made through living magic would end up obviously sharing in that same fate. And when Lucy goes up to him and embraces Natsu from the back when everyone else is like panicking of, what is Natsu doing? She embraces him, and, you can see in that panel while doing it, the face that she has pressed up against him is being burnt. It's being scorched, dark. Her clothes are being burnt off, and she's not letting go. And Natsu's immediate face upon that, it has that kind of whited out pupil look, where it's not in control or out of control. It really is just this shutdown sequence. And what I see really as it is when you think about it, because it'd be kind of like you can kind of think of like a safety protocol. Like if one of your demons in their state, try to kill the person they're connected to, then there could easily be some form of like halt sequence, or just in general of them doing whatever it is their demon wanted them to, or their master wanted to. Obviously, it's different for Zareth because Zareth wanted to die. So I guess it would be kind of like if one of them tried not to kill Zareth in that status. So obviously we never saw Natsu with his Etherious self confronting Zareth, so it's a little bit hard to really weigh this option there. But I think just that moment of Lucy embracing him and then him unintentionally hurting her while obviously wanting him to stop just kind of put him in that shutdown mode and just all around halting. And I think that was really important to note as well, because when you look at it as well, right before then, if you kind of go back a couple pages, you can see as the fight was going, that black layering was slowly creeping up on his arm. But as soon as Lucy embraced him, it started to recede. And it just began to go away until it crumbled and just left Natsu's arms bare. And what I just wanted to note that I think was really important is when you think back at Natsu's fight with Zareth and his whole Savage Dragon Fire, that kind of limit break, which I always still have my theory that it was Planck temperature. If you don't know what Planck temperature is, it's pretty much infinite heat. It's the opposite of absolute zero. And Gray has still gotten relatively close to absolute zero. I remember looking up, because when he froze the Tempestus tornadoes, the temperature for that is like has to be like negative 270 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like 70 degrees off of absolute zero. Actually, I think it's like 45. I think absolute zero is like 315, 320, or 340. I don't remember which one in the negatives. And obviously, the exact opposite of that, steering for Natsu would be infinite heat. And the whole idea like that is because absolute zero theoretically can affect time, that the opposite of that would also do that. But also because we know Natsu's Natsu's dragon fire rather, can burn magic. And how would you really burn time and an infinite source? And if you kind of just imagine this fire that can burn magic away, and at the same time burning an infinite supply into nothing, while at the same time burning time, Planck temperature really it makes a lot of theoretical sense when you think about it. And when you saw Natsu's arm after him, they were completely shot. They were burnt up, chunks of it just scorched off. And we'd never seen that before. We had never seen him push himself to a point where the heat was burning off parts of his body. And I think that's also a sign, because it was infinitely if the idea was it infinitely kept going up, it would make sense why his body couldn't handle it. And we see that here. We see that same level of damage to his arm. Well, both his arms this time. Before, it was just one arm. So I think it's safe to say when you compare the damage, and especially since this Natsu seems stronger than he was in the Albereth arc, that his flames are at least equal, if not greater, than that Savage Dragonfire. And this highly complicated merging of Dragon Force and Etherious. And that's very frightening, just to know it's not only dangerous to whoever he's facing, and it's not only dangerous to those around him, it's dangerous to himself. And if Natsu is going to keep progressing, he's going to keep going farther. He's going to have to not only just do power-ups, because we can see here, now it seems where if he progresses through a boost at this point, through an artificial boost, it could easily result in something like this again, where his arms are completely just scorched beyond what should be comparable. Luckily, they have Wendy nearby as a very high-level healer to mend him. But other than that, like, the only thing I could really see, like, really helping is if Lucy went into her Gemini dress, summoned Gemini, all three of them turned into, got Wendy's healing and healed up Natsu, because his arms are shot. If it wasn't for the fact that he had a healer, like, he would have to wait a while before fixing himself back up. That's not a cut. Those are severe burns. And that's to a guy whose entire motif is being on fire and fighting. So you just imagine how intense those flames are, how much damage those cause. So as I said, I got 3 out of my 4 right. I got Mercphobia, having to get serious. I got Natsu's form and aggression really advancing, and I got Lucy, showing signs of being connected. I see this as enough to really kind of cement that in. I think there's too many signs, I think, for it not to be Etherious related. And I think after this one, just that response that he gave off when she came up to him really, really tells a lot. And I think that's not only really important, I know the shippers are going to love this. I've already seen it all over Twitter today. But I think it's really important just in general for Natsu and Lucy's relationship, but also going forward of what exactly they're going to do. Because clearly, Natsu holds the power within him to contend with these dragon gods, but his body is not ready for it yet. He needs to get stronger. He needs to progress on his own. The idea of him getting any more of these boosts in order to, get to a level enough to fight one of these dragon gods, it's possible for him to, clearly to get it, but at this point, the boost necessary to get him will destroy his body and will just leave him in this completely devastated state. So that's going to be mostly it for this one. I think this was for the chapter felt a lot quicker than a lot of the chapters in 100 Years Quest have been. I think it's just been a very fast pace because it was mostly action, but I think there was a lot to it, just packed, that if you deduced really a lot of key aspects to what went down, then you can see a lot more kind of sprinkled throughout the chapter that, you have to really connect the dots to get. So, tell me in the comments what you think about this all. I actually really like this chapter because even though I said, like I said, it read really fast, but there's a lot out of it, and I think there might even be more that I haven't even noticed yet that I could get to. And I just, even noting of what could come in the future, not only all the stuff between Natsu progressing as a character in general, like the fact that it looks like he killed Mercphobia, and we already know that he was struggling with his morals and his belief of what to do in this scenario. So it's probably going to hurt him a bit. It's probably going to hurt him a bit emotionally. And he's probably going to hold this on his shoulders because it's not like Animus, where Animus was, starting to cause trouble, wanting to bring about dragons again and put humans back in an oppressive state. It wasn't Acnologia who was wanting just to bring complete and total destruction to the world. This was a guy who wanted to do better and wanted to get better. And Natsu saw that in him, and he had, though, to put him down because not only were his friends in danger, but also he knew that that's what Mercphobia would have wanted in that scenario, instead of, ruining everything that he saw as, him fixing his past, his people, his village. And I think it's going to really hurt him in the long run. But there's a lot of stuff here, like I've gone over. And I'd like to hear from you guys what you thought about this chapter as well. But other than that, like I said, drop a comment. And if I can get you to, I'd really appreciate it if you'd thumbs up the video, befriend the like button and subscribe button, and check out my videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. And I thank you all for listening.